Content warning. This episode of What the Trans features discussions about suicide, drug overdose, and violence against transgender and gender diverse people. If you or somebody you love is struggling, contact the Trevor Project by texting START to 678-678, calling 1-866-488-7386, or going online to thetrevorproject.org. You are not alone, and you are loved. Always. Welcome to What the Trans US edition. Episode 3.
Yay!
I'm Alyssa Steinzik.
I'm Valeriya Martindale.
And I'm here to ask you the most important question. Have you ever had a dream that you want to do so much you could do anything?
You know, I actually have, but I wish I could tell you about it. Just can't remember it. Horrible shame.
It's a really meandering dream. Did you know that kid was trying to quote Hercules, the animated Hercules?
Oh, I thought he was trying to quote the Bible.
Same thing. I said Hercules. No, that animated Hercules where he has like a line where he's like, "Don't you ever dream?" or some shit. And yeah, this little kid was trying to do that, and boy, he beefed it.
Wonder what he's doing these days. Is he still dreaming?
I killed him.
Oh, it seems a little extreme.
What else am I going to do? I got a lot of free time. Anyway, it's been 2 weeks since our previous podcast, our previous little check-in with each other about what we've been up to. And I don't know about you, but pretty much all I've been up to is playing Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh, yeah. It's been a very game-heavy week. Brain has been mush. Really haven't got anything done, which is great. Except for all the parts of my life that require me to be a productive member of society. So, you know.
Which is great, except for all the ways that it's not, which are 100%.
Literally everything under capitalism.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've gotten some work done here and there, put it off a lot longer than I should have, just to play more Dragon's Dogma 2.
It has truly taken over our lives.
It's a fantastic game. A lot of people are mad about it. I think they're all dumb.
It's just the cycle of a new release. It's always going to happen.
It is. Especially, one that got a lot of attention and traction before launch. Lot more attention than the first game got by far. And so it got hyped up a bit. And you know how it goes. I mean, we had the same conversation when Cyberpunk 2077 came out. I watched very little of the footage for that game before it came out, any of the coverage. And I was like, well, this will probably be like a fun little first-person action-adventure RPG kind of vibe. And I went into it, and that's all I expected, and that's what I got. And it was a little buggy, but it wasn't so bad. And I was happy. I enjoyed it, like, straight from launch. I think I beat it before they even put out any, like, big major bug fixes. So I, really raw-dogged Cyberpunk 2077, and I had a great time with it. And it seemed to me at the time that a lot of the people who were most angry about it were people who were kind of hitting this vibe of like, this game's going to change my fucking life, which I think is just a bad thing to ascribe to any media property, a movie, TV show, video game, whatever. Art is great and it can certainly move us in ways, but come on, it's,
It doesn't help that we're also smack dab in the worst part of the internet rage cycle for interaction baiting.
Oh, yeah.
Everything has to be
miserable.
The worst or the best, and there have to be an endless list of complaints, and everyone's got to tear every little tiny bit of it apart for as much engagement as possible, and it's driving me slowly insane.
That is a thing I've noticed a lot. It feels like nothing can just be like okay anymore.
Yeah, no, it's got to be polarizing.
Nobody wants to watch a thing and be like, that was pretty good. It's like either it's the best thing that's ever happened to me and it's changed my life, or I hate it so much that I'm going to start a war about it with a foreign country. Maybe you could just enjoy a thing a bit, and that's fine. If the game isn't for you, that's also fine. That's another, I don't know if you've ever seen that TikToks some woman made about like what she described as what about me culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like you'll see a thread where somebody's like, I want to make this bean soup because I'm low in iron and I need more iron and the beans have iron. And if you're low in iron, you can also make this bean soup that I love. And then somebody comes along and they're like, but I don't like beans.
Yeah.
How can I make this without beans? Yeah. I feel like that really was a hitting the nail on the head moment, because I see that everywhere now. I get so many people I just see that are like, but the game didn't make me happy. And it's like, okay, well, maybe the game wasn't for you. And like, maybe that's okay.
It can manifest in really weird spaces too. Like, I'm sure you've seen posts about people making fun of people who make substitutions to recipes that are just the most insane thing you've ever heard.
Yeah.
I didn't have butter, so I put a live cat in and it didn't turn out right. Shit recipe, 0 out of 10. Like, because it's about me. It's what I had to do.
Yeah, I substituted the butter for ice cubes and the soup turned out really bad.
Really low calorie though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, I guess maybe we're all guilty of it from time to time.
Oh, sure.
We butt into things that aren't really our prerogative, aren't our lane. But it feels like it has become a weird cultural issue. May I point you towards cis people legislating against trans people?
Oh, you may, but I really wish you wouldn't.
But I must, because now is our brief update on legislation.
God, I hope it is brief, but there are several here because it just keeps fucking rolling.
There are several. A lot of these actually kind of got pushed out like right around the time we were recording last episode. So we sort of got blindsided. Some of these are a bit old now. And that sucks. But, we'll go through them all the same. We're going to start out with Utah, Mormonville.
They're at it again.
And hey, if you're a Mormon and you're listening to this podcast, I don't want to apologize to you. Stop being a Mormon. Quit being a Mormon. Stop that right now. So first up, we've got Utah House Bill 157 that was signed into law by Governor Spencer Cox on March 14th. Like Ohio House Bill 68, which passed in late January, it prohibits courts from taking into account a parent's refusal to affirm a child's stated gender when discussing custody rights. So if you're split up over some important issue, like, for example, your husband hates your trans child, the family court no longer allowed to take into account that kind of information when they're divvying up custody between the parents. That's pretty fucking horrible.
This one especially sucks because it has actually happened, as we talked about last episode.
Yes, the woman who went to California with her trans, I think, daughter, and her ex-husband, who like ran for a local seat in somewhere in Texas and failed miserably, and was trying to get a Texas state court, I guess, to essentially preemptively force her to come back.
Yeah.
Like you might do this thing that I don't like. Can the law please tell you to come back to Texas? And yeah, they were. The judge was essentially like, "Hey, man, we can't actually punish somebody for something they haven't done yet.
We don't have thought crime on the books just yet. Sorry about that."
They're always talking about thought crime, but it seems like they're pretty into it, actually. So we've also got from Utah House Bill 316, which was signed into law on March 18th. That was a little bit bigger. It prohibits the Department of Corrections or county jails from assigning inmates of, quote, opposite biological sex to the same housing areas. And they define biological sex as just sex assigned at birth.
Of course.
Now, transgender inmates can request to be assigned to a living area with inmates whose sex assigned at birth differs. And then they'll have to undergo an individualized security analysis, they call it, where they'll consider factors like crimes they've been charged with, what their current sexual anatomy is, their physical characteristics. I don't like, do you look enough like a chick, I guess?
Jesus.
Yeah, whether or not they have a history of antisocial behavior, whether or not they might be claiming their gender identity just to pursue a change of living area, which is certainly a thing that people do all the time.
I can't believe they're hot or nodding prisoners in Utah. Exceptionally weird.
I know, yeah. Yeah, and it's, it's disgusting, it's messed up, and I also think that there's very, very little chance that trans inmates are going to have that request granted. I feel like it's very unlikely.
And imagine trying to have just a moment of relief in the hellscape that is the prison system, but you have to go through this whole checklist of things to be validated as a woman and then move to the right area. Like, I can't imagine everyone will bother trying either, which is even worse.
Yeah, and there are some other factors at play in there that I didn't list because they're just a bit too long. It's a very long list, a very dry bill. The weird thing too, they talk about your sexual anatomy, and they mention that like you can get a note from a surgeon who performed surgery on you, possibly, like a vaginoplasty or what have you.
Right.
But then also that you still have to get, I guess, visual confirmation from they say a medical professional. And, who does that mean, right? Are we talking about a prison doctor? I don't know. I really don't know how that's going to go. The whole thing is absolutely miserable, of course.
And of course, it's not even the last one Utah signed. Utah House Bill 396 was signed into law by Governor Cox on March 19th. He waited a whole day. Good for him. And it prohibits an employer from compelling an employee to communicate or otherwise act in a manner that the employee believes would burden or offend the employee's sincerely held religious beliefs, which is another one we talked about, similar in the last episode.
Yeah, that's right out of the bill. Language very similar. The whole thing is just, they think that they are being targeted by trans activists or whoever, and so they don't want anybody to be able to tell them to stop being dicks, essentially.
Everyone has equal rights, but their rights are more equal than yours.
Of course, as long as they have a sincerely held religious belief. What about my sincerely held religious beliefs?
It doesn't matter. It's not as important as their sincerely held religious beliefs.
You think it's because I'm Jewish?
Yeah, of course it's because you're Jewish. What else could it possibly be?
Oh, jeez.
And hey, coincidentally, they also passed Senate Bill 150, which was signed in by Governor Cox on the 21st. And it's a more general religious freedom bill. It says the state can't pass laws that limit or compel you to do anything against your sincerely held religious beliefs. Unsurprisingly, they're really just scattershotting this shit again.
Of course. Might I add that I believe that's in the Constitution already?
They're just making extra sure.
Isn't that in the... Yeah, isn't that in like the Bill of Rights? I'm not a legal scholar. I seem to recall there's something about Congress passing no law that would restrict religious freedom. I feel like that's already in there. I don't. Maybe these guys haven't read the Constitution. Did anybody tell them about the Constitution?
Those boys would be very upset if they could read.
Which is so funny because they're always going on about the fucking Constitution.
I know. Just everything is exactly as it was hundreds of years ago, and we should never think of anything else. It might hurt our wee brains.
Nothing has changed, though we could possibly look into passing an amendment to raise senators' pay, if that would please milady.
I mean, if you're going to hold beliefs circa 1776, I think you should be paid as they were paid in 1776. That seems only fair.
Certainly. We'll get right on that.
I'm sure they'll vote that into law any day now.
It only goes. We're having a little trouble getting people in power to remove their power. They seem to not want to do that, and we're not sure what to do now.
We've asked politely, and we're all out of ideas.
Okay, so next up, Alabama. Senate Bill 129, signed into law by Governor Kay Ivey on March 20th. Here we go again. This bans DEI programs from what they describe as certain public entities, and it also has prohibitions on the promotion, endorsement, and affirmation of certain divisive concepts in certain public settings. Oh, and just tacked onto the end there for fun, forces public institutions of higher education, aka colleges to segregate bathrooms by biological sex.
That's a hell of a one, too.
So I know you're wondering, what are the divisive concepts?
Please tell me all about these divisive concepts that are uprooting America.
Sure. So, and I love these. I really do. In like a kind of a hate-love kind of way. We've got any race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior. They can't teach that. They can't teach that individuals should be discriminated against or adversely treated because of their race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. They can't teach that the moral character of an individual is determined by his or her race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. It sort of just goes on like this for a while. I do love here near the end, they can't teach that fault, blame, or bias should be assigned to members of a race, color, religion, sex, ethnicity, or national origin. So you're saying I can't say that white people suck? Is that I can't make white people feel bad about racism? You can't dunk on these people. We'd love to dunk on these people, but the truth is they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, most of these DEI programs are explicitly created to teach people these things that white people aren't superior to people of color, right?
Yeah.
Or that you can't discriminate against women or trans people or whatever. That's exactly what these are for. But for some curious reason, people like Spencer Cox take these DEI programs and they interpret them to be like big machines that just say white people are bad and they should feel bad all the time. Not what those are about at all, but that's what they think they are. I guess Ron DeSantis told him to think that. So now they're banned in Alabama as well. And Utah. I think we had one of those last episode, one of those anti-DEI bans.
Oh yeah, they are all the rage right now, unfortunately. But we are finally free of Utah and Alabama. But unfortunately, Idaho's been working pretty hard at getting some nonsense onto the books. Senate Bill 1352 was signed into law by Governor Brad Little on March 21st. And it adds to existing law to provide that a counselor or therapist practicing in Idaho should not be required to counsel a client in support of goals, outcomes, or behaviors that conflict with the sincerely held religious, moral, or ethical principles of the counselor or therapist. And I got to tell you, as someone who looked for a therapist in rural Missouri that would be covered by my non-existent insurance and other financial factors, finding a non-religious therapist is pretty rough. But I can't imagine running into a religious counselor's office and being like, you're going to trans me. You got to get me estrogen.
I demand it.
You're going to believe everything I have to say.
Doctor, make me trans.
Not a thing that happens. Not a thing that will ever happen.
Also, I mean, this is not, nobody's ever, no psychiatric professional has ever been compelled to support gender affirming care. I mean, you should if you're a good doctor, but nobody's been forced to. Therapists and doctors pass off patients all the time. It's extremely common, and for really good reasons sometimes too. I mean, you can be a therapist, and the issues that your client is facing might hit a little too close to home for you, and they're difficult for you to deal with objectively, or keep your emotions in check. So you might say, "Hey, we can't move forward. I'm going to give you the name of some colleagues who you might mesh better with." And they might even do that early on in your relationship. You might do a couple sessions and it's like, wow, I don't really like you. We don't get along so great. Here are some people that you could maybe look into, right? Like that's super common. Nobody was forcing these people to trans anybody.
But I can dream.
I can dream.
Idaho also had House Bill 578 signed into law. That was on March 25th. Again, Governor Little's fault. And it states
that
any private child placing agencies and individuals, including faith-based child placing agencies and individuals, have the right to free exercise of religion under both state and federal constitutions. Under well-settled principles of constitutional law, this right includes the freedom to abstain from conduct that conflicts with an agency's sincerely held religious beliefs.
If it's well settled under constitutional law, why are you writing a state law about it?
Again, just to be extra sure.
What are you doing? Do you have any idea how hard it is to pass an amendment to the Constitution? It's so hard.
I would be surprised if we see it in our lifetimes at this point. I don't think we'll ever have that level of bipartisan support on anything other than blowing up people not from here.
Yeah, right. And of course, giving the Senate raises.
Well, of course, yeah. That's always in season.
Always a always a, across the aisle issue. We love money. Give us more money.
And the final part of Governor Little's signing into law hat trick was House Bill 668. Came into law March 27th. It bans the use of public funds for gender transition, including surgical operations or medical interventions. And this includes state Medicaid and any healthcare professional working for a state or local government entity. So on a state level, sorry, guys, no coverage for anything.
Yeah, so this effectively means that in Idaho, you're going to have to go private healthcare if you want to pursue transition. I don't know if that includes Planned Parenthood. I haven't, checked the maps in that area. I don't know if Idaho has any state-funded Planned Parenthoods who maybe would no longer be able to provide informed consent healthcare as a result of this bill. But if they do, and if you're acquiring your medication in Idaho that way, you're going to want to find a new way to get those meds. Moving swiftly along to even worse states, West Virginia House Bill 4233. Signed into law by Governor Jim Justice on March 27th. Really short one, just prohibits listing your gender on a birth certificate as non-binary. Now, it doesn't make a distinction here. It kind of specifically calls out babies. You can't put non-binary on a baby's birth certificate. I don't know who would. I don't know, because it, in the bill, it specifically mentions in the state of West Virginia, and this is the case in several states, you have to fill out the birth certificate for your newborn child within 7 days of their birth. Mm-hmm. So that includes, things like whatever name you're giving them, their gender, the baby gender, and, the names of the parents, stuff like that. A lot of that stuff, I think, is actually typically filled out by a doctor or a nurse. I feel like mostly you just give them a name. I don't think I've ever had any friends who had a baby and then, the nurse came in like, and what gender would you like your child to be?
Did you have any thoughts on like hair color, height, weight, maybe? Future profession?
We're doing the gene modification right now. Yeah, no, I don't. So I think, mainly this is going to target people who update their birth certificate in West Virginia, though. And I haven't looked into this, but I'm almost certain that West Virginia just doesn't allow you to alter your birth certificate unless there's a clerical error. Just like my unfortunate birth state. I've mentioned before I grew up in Tennessee, but I was born and lived in until I was about 2 years old in Florida. Florida does not allow you to change your birth certificate at all anymore unless it's a clerical error. If they misspelled your name or something and you only found out, well into your adulthood or something. So I don't think this probably wasn't a thing you could do anyway. Jim Justice just wanted to make sure you knew that he fucking hates you. What a ridiculous name. That can't be his legal name. You think he's changed his name?
Oh, that'd be really funny.
That would be hilarious.
I mean, if you're born named Jim Justice, you have to go into some sort of horribly corrupt law office, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep it, right?
Exactly. I would keep it myself, but...
Yeah, even if I was born Jim Justice and then realized I was a woman and transitioned, I would just continue to be Jim Justice. But on that note, fuck Jim Justice. Moving along to, again, my home state, Tennessee.
Yay.
Senate Bill 1738. We've talked about in a previous episode that Tennessee likes to kind of double whammy their House and Senate bills and move them along at the same time. So it is in the House as well. Passed the Senate and the House on April 1st. It's been sent to Governor Bill Lee's desk as of recording. He has not signed it. I have no reason to doubt that he's going to sign it. He sucks shit. So he's certainly going to sign it. But what Tennessee Senate Bill 1738 is about, it's called the Tennessee Foster and Adoptive Parent Protection Act. And it prohibits the Department of Children's Services from requiring an adoptive or foster parent to support a policy on sexual orientation or gender identity that conflicts with the parents', say it with me, folks,
sincerely held religious or moral beliefs. Every time.
Here we go again. Yeah, so if you're a little queer kid, now you can be adopted by hateful parents who are going to shove you into conversion therapy. Isn't that just splendid? Tennessee racking up those bills. Last episode we talked about they've now outlawed marriage equality. You can deny an interracial marriage if you're, what was her name? Kim?
I can't remember her name.
Homophobic lady, whatever. Yeah, if you don't like people, you can just tell them they can't get married for whatever reason in Tennessee. So that's great.
Really is a race to the bottom at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, which is no surprise. I grew up in Tennessee and none of this surprises me at all. Not even a little bit. That covers most of the bills. And shout out to, again, as always, the ACLU's anti-LGBTQ bill tracker. Pretty much all the information that we get is, provided by them searching through whatever bills have passed and then reading those bills on the state's website. Extremely helpful, and we always appreciate that they're maintaining that list. But we do have a special mention to two bills in Georgia, House Bill 1104 and House Bill 1170. Now, Georgia requires that any bill pass at least one chamber of the House by a certain deadline, and if it doesn't do that, then it fails. It will not proceed. And those two bills failed to meet that deadline. So rather than, accept the way that lawmaking is supposed to happen in Georgia, Republican lawmakers instead just amended two completely unrelated bills to tack on the things that they wanted to do with 1104 and 1170, which included things like banning transgender students from participating in sports, bathrooms, and requiring parental notification for every library book their child checked out, and also imposing restrictions on sex education, and also banning puberty blockers as sort of a combo onto the existing ban on gender-affirming care for minors. Were you amused by banning them from participation in the bathroom?
Yeah, I like the idea that they would just stop you at the door and return you away.
Nope.
You must go to the soiling corner, trans child.
Go outside, find a spot. Oh, fuck these people.
Just the worst.
But hey, good news. On March 28th, bill failed to pass.
Hey, Rip Bozo.
Rest in peace. You won't be missed. Thanks to Erin Reed for that information. She posted that in her Substack. If you want to keep up to date on any kind of anti-trans or really anti-queer in general lawmaking, Erin is pretty much always on top of that nonstop. With some other people, I think our friend Mira, who helped on the Trans Data Library, is actually part of the little team that works on that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that Evan announced that a month or two ago. So yeah, we appreciate everybody, Erin and everybody that works with her, to keep track of all that stuff, because it's a full-time job.
Oh yeah, we absolutely would not be able to keep on track of it, even with my extremely limited workload at the moment. It's a lot.
Certainly not.
And just mentally a lot to have to pour through all of that on a weekly basis.
Oh, it is. If you ever want to go through and try to read any of these bills, folks, they are just obnoxious. They're so horrible. I've talked about it before. You certainly want clarity in these. I understand to a degree why they're so sort of laboriously written.
Certainly.
But it makes them really upsetting to read. A lot of these bills that we talked about just now are only 10, 15 pages long. But some of these bills will end up being over 100 pages long. Just a nightmare. And I read those. So you don't have to, folks. Love me. Love me and adore me.
And with those out of the way, we do have some updates here. Right after we recorded episode 2 talking about the death of Nex Benedict, a couple of updates came out, and just with the schedule that we were recording on 2 weeks ago, couldn't get them in time. Wasn't much we could do. And they were pretty major. On March 21st, Tulsa County District Attorney Stephen Kunzweiler released a statement saying that the DA's office would not be pursuing criminal charges for Nex's death. He mentioned that the medical examiner's report found no significant internal injuries that might have caused the death, and that the police had supposedly found brief notes written by Benedict that appeared to be related to suicide.
Yeah, haven't been released. That's very much in the court of Sue Benedict and the rest of her family.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that's about exactly. My stance remains don't trust the cops, which includes the district attorney.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's their party line for the moment. And we don't know if the Benedict family will ever release anything like that. They certainly aren't obligated to. And I would understand if they didn't want to.
No, I mean, personally, I would expect they probably wouldn't. I don't know. This whole thing has been such a wreck that I I wouldn't blame anyone involved if they wanted to just put it all behind them and move on as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. So we don't know exactly what's going on there, but that is what the district attorney has said.
He also went on to say that based on the investigation of the Owasso Police Department, I am in agreement with their assessment that the filing of juvenile charges is not warranted. From all the evidence gathered, this fight was an instance of mutual combat. I do not have a reasonable belief that the state of Oklahoma could sustain its burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt if charges were presented for prosecution.
Fuck that guy.
Don't know if a 1-on-3 fight is something I would call mutual combat. We'll just
absolutely not
grit our teeth and nod at that one and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, and what they're talking about is the fact that Nex,
threw water,
by his own admission, threw water on these girls, which of course warranted ganging up on him in a bathroom and beating the shit out of him.
Of course. A normal thing that people do.
Certainly. I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree that it was mutual combat. I will say, not to give the district attorney any props or anything, I do agree that if they tried to prosecute it criminally, it probably would not succeed. Burden of proof in criminal trials is generally pretty high in this kind of scenario in a state where they just hate trans people,
Yeah.
And there's already this confusion about potential suicide notes. Yeah, I hate to agree with him. I don't think that they would be able to take it anywhere if they did try to prosecute.
No, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go anywhere legally.
Mm-hmm. So that leaves the ball again in the Benedict family's court. They can pursue civil litigation if they are so inclined against the school, against the families of these girls who assaulted Nex. No word on whether or not they're going to do that. They did release a short statement encouraging lawmakers in Oklahoma to institute reforms that might combat bullying in schools, but they haven't commented on the DA's statement or what we're going to talk about next, which is that on March 27th, as we said would happen, the full autopsy report was released to news outlets for Nex. The pathologist who performed the autopsy, Dr. Ross Miller, noted, quote, several bruises, a cut, and other injuries on Benedict's head, but he determined in his report that none of those injuries played a direct role in Nex's death. And Dr. Constance D'Angelo, who is a Washington, D.C. forensic pathologist and the former chief medical examiner of the city of Philadelphia, reviewed the autopsy report at the request of the Oklahoman, and she seconded Miller's conclusion. She said that the amount of both Benadryl and Prozac in Nex's body, quote, would have been lethal on its own and far outside of the range of catching up on a missed dose. So, very, very early on in all of this reporting, I was very much unwilling to believe that this was an intentional overdose. I was possibly willing to believe an accidental overdose. It does seem like the evidence that they have released suggests that it was suicide.
Right.
I still have my doubts. I continue to not trust the police, which also includes medical examiners. A lot of these people have agendas. I don't know what the truth is, but those are the things that they have said are true. The Benedict family has not disputed them publicly. We don't know if they're pursued a private autopsy or a private investigation. It's possible, certainly, that they're telling the truth. I think it's important to remember that regardless of the direct cause of death, what we know is that what killed Nex Benedict was relentless bullying about his gender identity.
Right. And after his death, there were quite a few people who, as we talked about in Nex's episode, people who came out and talked about the conditions of the school and how staff generally doesn't treat bullying as a serious problem. And that's certainly not restricted to this one school. By and large, bullying is usually not treated as seriously as it needs to be. And this is not an uncommon outcome when you treat it as a boys being boys or kids will just do what kids do sort of situation. It has very serious long-term ramifications on mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, either Nex or Sue specifically said that Nex had endured bullying about his gender identity for over a year. That's a really long time to be tormented by your peers.
Oh yeah, especially when you have to see them every day outside of weekends and you just don't get a break.
Yeah, and one of the people who spoke at the vigil to Joe Yerkeba, I believe, with an outlet. I can't remember everything. Calm down. NBC Out, I think.
Yeah.
Specifically said that he had gone to homeschooling for his senior year because the bullying at Owasso High School was so horrendous, was just so miserable that he couldn't continue to go to in-person classes. And I'm glad that that's an option. A lot of the time I really don't respect homeschooling as an option because it's something that's abused by very aggressively religious people sometimes to the detriment of their children. It's good that he was able to get away with that. I wish more students were able to escape that kind of nastiness. Oh, also, Dr. D'Angelo noted that the report did not make it clear how many pills Nex took. Typically, a forensic investigator will determine that. They'll go through the crime scene, as it were, and check medication bottles in the deceased person's home after the fact. Owasso Police Department did not do that.
I have to wonder how common it is to not do that step.
I'm honestly not sure.
I don't know.
Offhand. I don't know how many police departments even employ a forensic investigator.
Yeah.
Though it seems like maybe even a beat cop would think to do that, but they're not trained for that from what I understand, or most things that they do.
True.
ACAB. Anyway, Dr. Miller also said, and I quote, "The manner of death is not a legal determination of culpability or intent, as such decisions are outside the scope of the medical examiner's role." And he's absolutely correct at that. You really can't just say, with authority, what led to a person's death beyond what is immediately evident in a medical examination.
Right.
But according to Dr. Miller, it seems that the fight did not directly contribute to Nex's death. I still have a hard time believing that. I certainly don't want to promote what you might consider a conspiracy theory. I'll just say again, don't trust the police. People are compelled to make statements that benefit and protect the police and other state and local government organizations. So it's just a little hard to believe the things that these people say, I think.
Especially in a case, as we went over, that it has reached national scrutiny for multiple running weeks. It's going to behoove everyone to find the path of least resistance as far as answers go. Yeah,
I mean, you've got the Federal Department of Education looking into this. Still no updates on anything on that end. Maybe we'll hear more about that in the next few weeks or months.
I imagine that'll definitely take more time, yeah. Depending on the scale of the investigation, especially.
Yeah. But for now, that's all we've got on Nex. We do have something stupid, though.
I do like to lighten things up with dumber news, I say, as if I wrote any of this.
Sure.
So coincidentally, this year, Trans Day of Visibility and Easter Sunday were the same day.
What?
I know, the craziest coincidence, March 31st, Sunday. As you know, Easter is the same day every year, 100%, so this was definitely a plot. Conservative people got real upset about it.
Sounds like the transgenders are control the government.
That is exactly what's happening, which is why everything is so great for us right now.
Oh my God. Big transgender made Trans Day of Visibility and Easter.
An exceptionally tall transgender person did this.
Big transgender, 6'20", fucking killing for fun. Why have you done this?
Well, Trans Day of Visibility was founded in 2009 by Rachel Crandall Crocker. It was to celebrate surviving and thriving trans folks. We don't have too many holidays that do that for us. Since at the time, it was the only widespread trans day other than the Trans Day of Remembrance, which is where we honor trans people we've lost throughout the year, which not as much of a cause to celebrate. So we needed a positive day.
So big transgender Rachel Crandall Crocker invented Trans Day of Visibility for us.
Just to make sure that Easter got what Easter deserved.
Thank you, Rachel.
And it is always March 31st. And this year, in its 15th anniversary, it just happened to fall on Easter Sunday.
What do you mean by that? Just happened?
Well, I'm saying that the calendar moves just a little bit every year. Like the days kind of shift a little bit. It's kind of a whole thing. It's like how we understand our linear time traveling around the sun.
Actually, something I didn't include in the notes here, I forgot about it.
Yeah.
This is just a thing that I know, having grown up around Southern Baptists.
Oh, no.
Is that, well, I don't know the specifics. It's fuzzy in my brain, but there's something about, there's a specific celestial event that happens. And then after that, is Easter. So it varies throughout time. Every year it can be between March 22nd and April 25th, just depending on this weird thing. I don't know. Christians are strange. If you're a Christian and you're listening, I'm not going to apologize, and I don't take that back. Go with the Mormons. Get out of here.
That's an odd one. Not Easter itself, but I mean, like, if it is bound.
Oh, Easter's a pretty odd one.
Oh, Easter is pretty strange.
Pagan holiday where a rabbit poops out eggs. Something to do with Jesus.
We just love taking those. I say we as if I'm still a Christian. Just love taking those pagan holidays and tarting them up a little bit.
Yeah, let me tell you, as a Jew who grew up around Christians, you're fucking weirdos, you little freaks. You creepy little freaks, you nasty little sewer boys.
They just love any holiday that'll let you drink.
Which I do understand. I get that. Who was very normal about all of this?
Smooth prompt. As it turns out, our angriest loser of the week was Ian Miles Chong, who is usually the angriest loser of the week, no matter what. Love
Ian. What a little freak.
He said that trans activists replaced Easter, even though Easter can fall anywhere between March 22nd and April 25th, as you just helpfully enlightened us about. And the two dates had already coincided once back in 2013, but they won't do it again until 2086, because again, calendars are basically
he's gonna be
magic.
Just as mad about it then?
I hope he's just as dead about it then, but we'll find out.
What was that recently? Weren't people memeing, maybe isn't the right word, about Ian Miles Chong like being charged with sedition?
Yeah. Sadly, I don't think anything came of that, but I can wish.
In Malaysia, where Ian Miles Chong is from, having never been to America ever. Oops. Oopsie. What a strange little freak. What a strange little creature he is.
No agendas at play here. Speaking of agendas, other conservatives were upset, especially at Joe Biden, for he performed the crime of acknowledging the Trans Day of Visibility and doing nothing else as he always does. And he's done that every year since 2021, so it's not a new habit of his.
Well, he did acknowledge Trans Day of Visibility and Easter at the same time, so that was a cardinal sin.
Of course, they can't be in the same breath, or else Jesus doesn't wake up that year.
Evan wrote something about that for Assigned Media, and something about like if Jesus sees a trans person, he turns around and goes back into his cave for 4 more weeks.
You heard it here first, folks. Wait, no, you didn't. You heard it at Assigned Media.
You can hear it at Assigned Media every week, multiple times a week. Hey, I have a column over there. You should go read it. I'm pretty cool.
Stop self-promoting. Tell us more about Easter.
Oh, sorry. So the hysteria about this included a lot of large conservative outlets. I put a little fact check here on the number of times this happened, and I went through. Evan wrote down these as well. So thank you so much to Evan and Assigned Media for the coverage of this. Talking about this, Fox News did it at least 4 times, possibly more. The Federalist talked about it at least twice. The Daily Wire talked about it at least 3 times, including opinion columns from Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro. Cursed are their names. The Daily Caller got it once, and a bunch of other far-right rags that you've literally never heard of, and I'm just not going to name them.
I gotta tell you, these outlets have talked about Trans Day visibility more than the trans people in my life have.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I didn't even know it was this day until it became like a media sensation.
Exactly. I had no idea. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, everyone's upset. I wonder why. Foolishly, I thought it might be something other than being trans, but oops.
No, what a ridiculous thought. I don't like to be visible, so I actually try to not keep up with what day Trans Day of Visibility is. Please don't perceive me.
I appreciate the thought, but if we could all just forget I existed, it'd be a lot better off for me.
Please, I'm begging you. Do you want to know what Donald Trump said in response?
No, I never want to know what Donald Trump said, but please tell me anyway.
Yeah, I have to tell you. It's in the notes here.
I know. We can't deviate or I'll die.
I can't not tell you. I can't not tell you. The form of the script is the only thing keeping her alive.
Please, I'm so weak.
So, Donald Trump, in response, unilaterally declared November 5th, which is the election day, to be Christian Day of Visibility. I don't think he has the authority to do that.
I don't think he's the president. Wait, let me double check.
No,
he's not the fucking president, is he?
No, looks like he lost.
Huh.
Yeah, he's not allowed to do that. I guess he could do it retroactively if he were to win.
I guess.
So look forward to that. November 5th, Christian Day of Visibility.
They're so invisible the rest of the year.
So hard to find. Yeah.
God, please show me a single Christian in this time of need. I can't find one.
My kingdom for a Christian. Wait.
Why Election Day?
I don't know. I guess it's going to be a big day for him.
I guess.
He thinks. Could be a big day for everyone. We'll see what happens.
Oy.
And he said during a Wisconsin rally on the 2nd of April, quote, "What the hell was Biden thinking when he declared Easter Sunday to be Trans Visibility Day?" So again, Joe Biden didn't do that.
Willful misinformation from the finest of misinformation peddlers.
From the king of misinformation. Not a thing that Joe Biden did. We've already established that big transgender Rachel created this holiday.
I hope for her sake, Rachel's actually incredibly short and this is all horrible slander.
I don't know her at all. I don't know really anything about her.
I don't know a single thing beyond the holiday, sorry to say. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, so if you feel I've slighted you by calling you big transgender, I'm genuinely sorry. My apologies. You're the only person I'm going to apologize to during this podcast. I'm certainly not going to apologize to Joe Biden.
Hell no.
I think this just highlights in a big way the difference in the tone of the conversation about trans people between the last day this happened in 2013 and now. I would wager that almost nobody even noticed that it happened in 2013.
No, it certainly wasn't established enough. I mean, I certainly didn't know it happened. I barely knew it was a holiday, and I'm trans, and I'm part of a trans news podcast. I would like to think I'm a little more abreast of things, and it didn't even show up on my radar. So
no, and I hadn't even transitioned then. I was woefully ignorant about pretty much everything about trans people in 2013, so I didn't know about it. I guarantee you that nobody was reporting on it in national news outlets as they are now.
I just got to have a wedge issue to be really upset about right now.
Oh, sure. It's all been whipped up into a frenzy every week for you to inject straight into your fucking body and scream and cry and shit and piss about as much as you want.
Thank God we can all get it out with the communal gnashing of teeth.
The communal crying, shitting, pissing pit.
Yeah, of teeth.
Kind of a DashCon vibe, right?
That poor ball pit.
Oh, that's some weird lore. I don't know how many people, surely people who listen to this podcast know about DashCon.
And if not, you should definitely learn about it, although ideally not through the internet historian who has some views that may not be quite so fun for trans people. But
no,
there were
certainly not.
Plenty of online documentaries that covered DashCon.
Just Google it. We're not going to go into it. We got to start a different podcast to talk about DashCon. Hey, thanks to Evan Urquhart and Assigned Media for covering all that stupid shit.
Thank you, Evan.
Hey, has Joe Biden done anything lately?
You know, he's said things, but he hasn't really done anything.
Trick question.
You got me with that one. Title IX is a congressional act that prohibits sex-based discrimination at any school or in any educational program that receives money from the federal government. We've talked about it before. President Biden has been promising to issue new guidance on Title IX, especially about how transgender students are covered. And he's been promising this since he took office in 2021. In April of 2023, his administration released a proposal that would prohibit blanket bans on transgender student-athlete participation in sports, but still leave room for bans on trans athletes on a sport-by-sport basis. So I'm sure it'll do absolutely nothing. Thank you, Joe. So far, his administration has failed to provide any meaningful guidance on Title IX. Like with many things relating to trans people, he likes to talk a big game and do as little as possible. God forbid he take action. Yeah. God forbid he not write back doors to keep students from participating in sports.
Yeah, I'll admit when Joe Biden took office, I was foolishly optimistic about how he might treat the trans community. There's this whole thing. Sarah McBride is a politician and an activist. She's a member of the Democratic portion of the Delaware Senate. She was the national press secretary for the Human Rights Campaign.
Sure.
And she was a very, very close friend of Beau Biden, which of course means that she was a close friend of the Bidens in general. I think she worked with Beau campaigning during probably the Obama-Biden presidency. And so she wrote an autobiography a few years ago, and Joe did the foreword for that. And he just, whenever Joe talks about trans people, it's very sweet and kind and thoughtful. When it comes to actually doing a damn thing for us as a president, not so much.
That's a lot easier than threatening to lose you a couple votes, of course.
And at this point, it's unlikely that any meaningful change is going to be finalized until after the election, assuming that Biden wins and retains office. According to the news outlet Them, a source who is, they said, familiar with the administration's thinking, said that Biden likely delayed those changes until after the election because, quote, it seems to be too much of a hot topic.
I love when the people running for the highest office in the United States are concerned with hot, big topics and would rather focus on things like, God, I don't know. What color should we paint the Oval Office this time? Eggshell or slightly more off-white?
Yeah, I don't know what the big deal is. Hot Topic is fine. I have to shop at Torrid. I'm kind of chubby.
It's great if you want some Invader Zim merchandise in the year of our Lord 2024.
Certainly. Purchasing myself some Darth Vader panties for some reason.
And just the strangest allotment of sex toys you've ever seen in your life.
You're thinking of Spencer's.
Hot Topic had some weird shit the last time I went. They haven't branched out as hard as Spencer's. This was 2021. They certainly had more than their fair share of hentai shirts, just like straight up pornography on shirts and some odd stuff otherwise.
Those became like weirdly like popular. Those like retro hentai, whatever you call a Japanese sex comic. Yeah, it's just a horny manga, I guess. T-shirts with weird panels from those, I think, kind of became popular. I remember seeing a lot of those kind of in like the late 2010s. I don't know what that was about. Maybe I don't want to know.
I'm trying not to think hard about it. Also, what a segue that was. Anyway,
so the Biden-Harris administration initially proposed to have these guidelines put forward by May of 2023. Then they pushed that deadline back to October, and they pushed it again to March. And so now it's just kind of nebulously after the election.
Don't hold your breath. It's probably not happening.
It may not happen ever. I mean, I don't know if they couldn't get it done in 4 years. I don't know what another 4 years is going to do.
My only hope is that because he won't be running for re-election again, maybe he'll actually do something in the last 4 years, but I really wouldn't put my eggs in that basket.
He's going to be so goddamn old. It's not like he's thinking, what am I going to do after, you know?
He's going to be lucky if he doesn't turn to dust, yeah.
Right. At his age, he's got to be thinking, what am I going to do if I even survive this? Am I, you know, like, let's see if I can make it to the end of my second term without fucking dying. Yeah, that was ageist. And if you're old and listening to this podcast, I'm not going to apologize.
Please don't run for president of the United States when you're in your 80s. I'm begging you.
Go hang out with the Christians and the Mormons.
Just enjoy your twilight years and stop legislating things that actually affect people 60 years younger. What a joyful bunch of updates on horrible things that was.
Absolutely. And
do you have anything maybe happier that we could talk about just a little bit?
Sure, we could talk about some trans joy in our trans joy segment that we like to close out the podcast with every single episode because, oh my God, we got to get some joy out there.
Just anything. Put a shred of joy, please.
Just a crumb of joy, mistress. And we've got a crumb. On the 26th of March, Sacramento, California declared itself a sanctuary city for trans people. City council members passed a resolution which went into effect immediately that ensures, quote, council resources will not be used to criminalize trans people seeking gender-affirming care or to cooperate with those who wish to enforce laws that criminalize that care in other states.
Good for them. California is already pretty good about trans rights, to no one's great surprise, but it's always nice to have a little more.
California broadly, Governor Newsom maybe not so much. He kind of sucks, but he's not in charge of Sacramento.
You have to bring the National Guard for that one, buddy.
He's not that bad. He just mostly is incompetent, which is, I think, pretty standard of any Democratic elected official in America.
Oh, yeah. That just comes with the territory these days.
Sure does. Any other thoughts on that?
No, not being in Sacramento, I can't really speak as to how the air has changed there, so to speak.
True. You are Californian now.
I am. And it's been wonderful out here in most ways, so.
I don't know, maybe I'll just uproot my entire life and move to California one of these days with all the money that I get from George Soros.
Oh yeah, get that car that he gave you and put her on over.
Oh, the Soros car.
The Soros Mobile, if you will, please. Use its proper name.
You want to end this podcast?
I would love
Shall
to
we
end
this podcast?
We've done our updates and everything, but it's been a pretty quiet couple of weeks otherwise, so I'm okay ending it here.
Yeah, thank goodness. So, this episode of What the Trans US edition was written and presented by Alyssa Steinzik, that's me, and
Valeriya Martindale, that's me, and I'm also its editor.
Thanks so much to Waritsari Yui Karlberg, who created our fantastic intro and outro music, as well as revamping the intro music for the UK edition podcast. You can find her socials at linktr.ee/ethereal UK music. That's a link tree that has all of her stuff. Go check her out. She's awesome. And thanks so much as well to our wonderful patrons. Do you want to start us off there?
I would love to. Bernice Roust,
Ellen Meller,
Jay Hoskins,
Trowen,
Ashley,
Maddie B,
Squid Xena,
Setcab,
Jane,
Roberto de Prunk,
Rose Absolute,
Sarah,
Cena,
Kiki T,
Derek,
Sky Killian,
Eric Widman,
B,
Jude,
Monsieur Squirrel,
Fergus Evans,
Anubis a Jackal,
Kamina,
Brandon Craig,
Break the System,
Sean Phillips,
Heidi Riordan,
Ezra,
Sophia the Sixth,
Lentil,
Philippa Taprog,
Alethea Aurora,
Clara Viljami,
Amelia,
Corvina Ravenheart, the trans metal DJ from Twitch and VR chat, who will play St. Lucifer for props,
Tabitha Joe Cox, aka Candy,
Fiona McDonnell,
Torikuso H,
Murgatroyd,
Ontologically Unjust,
Stella,
Cinder Gosa,
Rebecca Prentice,
Crazy Richard,
Dan Oblivion,
Florence Stanley,
The Cthulhu Kid,
Helen _
Chrissy Jarvis,
Ellie Hollingsworth bought too many magic cards,
Nick Ross,
Alice Chalkley,
Fiona Punchard,
John,
Nick Duffy,
CB Bailey,
Gordon Cameron,
Ted Delphos,
Wen Riverup,
Vic Parsons,
Patreon user,
Vic Kelly,
Catherine,
Sabrina McVeigh,
Cassius Adair,
Melissa Brooks,
Kerrigan 12,
April Heller,
Sophie Lewis,
Alexandra Lilly,
Claire Scott,
Ariadne Pena,
Lauren O'Nions,
Bernard's Pink Jelly Bean,
Lanos.
and Chris Hubley.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you so much. Check out our Patreon if you want to support us anymore. Goodbye.
Bye.